If you look in here, we're going to try to count the cells that don't end with the characters SUN. Right, so we want to pick up these 3 cells because none of these 3 cells end in sun. We'll talk about 2 different ways to do this and why you might want to choose one or the other. And if you want to follow along or get a copy of these formulas, if you go to sheetshelp.com, the link is in the description of the video as well. You'll be able to get a copy of this template. In between that website and these videos, you should be able to learn everything you need to know about Google Sheets. Or at least that's what we're shooting for, right? So let's get started. I'll zoom in a little bit here just so you can see it on your screen, especially if you're watching this on a smaller screen. And we'll talk about what we're doing in cell A9 because we're arriving at the right answer. I'm going to delete that so we can just type it out. And as it comes on the screen, it will help us to explain it. So what we will start out with and we'll use in this example is the COUNTIF function, and it needs the range. So we want to count the number of values in A4 to A8. And the criteria that we want to count them on is, first let's start it with a quote, so you have to remember to do that. And we're looking for something that does not meet this condition, right? And we specify that by saying less than or greater than together. So you string those 2 operators together to mean not or doesn't. And then the next concept that we need to use here is we're saying anything can be before these letters. So it doesn't matter if it's some sun, part sun, or just the word sun would be fine too. In order to designate that, we're going to use what's called a wildcard, and it'll be an asterisk in this case. So that means any character, any number of characters before, and then the word sun. So I have caps lock on right now, but I don't need to have it on. That could also be lowercase for this example. You would close it off with the quotes, and then the parentheses ends the entire function, and press enter, and there you have 3. All right, I've put these green check marks next to the ones that we're trying to count just kind of as a visual aid to help you out. So if that's what you're looking to do and the capitalization doesn't matter, then you're done. You just use the COUNTIF formula. But we'll come down to this next example and we're going to use a function called query. So query is probably the most powerful function in Google Sheets, but it's also tricky to learn because it uses a syntax that's borrowed from the SQL language. So it doesn't flow like a normal, or what I call normal, the spreadsheet function would. But in this case, it does care about the punctuation. So one, it's more flexible and it's good to learn it anyway. But also, if you're trying to pick up, in this case, only the words that don't contain sun with a capital S, this is a good way to do it. All right, so we'll come into A21. We'll delete the formula that's there right now. So we're going to say query. That starts the function. And then it's normal so far. So it wants the range with the data that we're going to be evaluating. So we'll type that in as we typically would. And now here's where we write the query and things get completely different. So queries are surrounded by double quotes. We'll put them both in to start out with, and then go back one and go in the middle of it. And then you need to start out with the word select, and then after select you tell it what you want it to display. In this case we want to do a count, so that's the same word, count. And the column that we want to count is column A. There's only one column in this case, but you designate A anyway. And we want to do this, and we'll just say this in English, it's going to be similar to how we type it out. We want to count A where A doesn't end with the word sun. So there's a collection of clauses that you can use, and one of them is called where. And then we're going to reverse it because we're looking for where things don't. So we'll use the word not. So where not, and then we're looking at column A again. So we'll specify that. And then it ends with, so that's nice and easy to type, right? And then the word sun. So instead of double quotes, we've already used a double quote. So inside of them, we have to use single quotes. We'll say sun, and then we're done with the query. All right, so we're going to select everything in the column A where it doesn't end with sun. And then we'll put a -1 on here to deal with the header as a way of saying the range that we selected does not have a header. Hit enter, And there we go. So what this has done differently than COUNTIF is that it counted the cell that has part sun in it, because this is not a capital SUN. So if I were to change that, you'll watch the result change from a 4 to a 3. And there you go. So choose the query or the COUNTIF based on whether or not you are concerned with the capitalization. And as we said before, query is a very powerful function, but takes a while to learn. So this next video is going to walk you through a lot of the basics about query. And after watching that, you should have a pretty good feeling of how to use it. I'll see you in that next video. Thanks for watching.